Making the consumer foot the bill, the government announces an energy price review. Jeremy Clarkson is admitted to hospital in Mallorca, suffering from pneumonia. Parents told to up their game to prevent children binging on social media during the holidays. Very good afternoon to you. A major search and rescue operation is underway this lunchtime off the Sussex coast. That's after a boat sank in the English Channel, reportedly after a collision with another vessel. One person has died, another has been rescued. Two others are thought to be missing. Lifeboats and Coast Guard helicopters have been joined by boats in the area between Shoreham and Brighton. Earlier on, I spoke to Andy Jenkins, around half an hour ago that was, and he's the Maritimes Operations Commander for the UK Coast Guard.
Yeah, we received a report just before 6 o'clock this morning that a male had been located in the water near some fishing equipment by one of the local fishing vessels, about 2 miles to the west-southwest of Shoreham by the sea on the south coast. The male was located by the crew of the fishing vessel and subsequently is brought to shore. He then indicated that some 5 hours previously, himself and 3 other people had ended up in the water following some kind of incident. So immediately we commenced a large-scale search and rescue operation in the area, which has got quite a lot of resources involved. We've got 2 Coast Guard helicopters, 2 RNLI lifeboats, 2 full Coast Guard rescue teams ashore, and also multiple other vessels at sea. So we're combing the area very closely. Just before 8 a.m., a second person was located in the water by the Coast Guard rescue helicopter and was recovered back to shore and handed over to medical authorities and police. However, Sussex Police have since confirmed, unfortunately, this person is sadly deceased. So currently we're still searching for potentially 2 other persons in the water in the area. We've got no information really as to what may have occurred overnight at all, other than potentially it was a collision which resulted in these 4 people ended up in the water. But as I say, at the moment we're trying to gather the information as to what may have happened.
Well, let's bring in Paul Hawkins, our reporter now, who's got the latest. And this rescue operation, Paul, very much still underway.
Very much still underway. They're still looking for 2 people who are missing in the water. They're using lifeboats, they're using helicopters to search the coastline and the sea. This search began at 5:50 this morning after a man was rescued from the water. We know he's a 45-year-old man from London. He was found clinging to a buoy by some fishermen. The RNLI then subsequently took him to the coast and he was then taken to hospital. At 8:15 a body was pulled from the water. 2 others, as we know, are missing, and the RNLI is carrying out searches between Worthing Pier in the west and Brighton in the east. That's a stretch of coastline that's around about 10 or 11 miles long, and Sussex Police, they say they believe the 4 men left Brighton Marina around midnight. The boat may have sunk a couple of hours later, but the facts aren't clear at this time. The Marine Accident Investigation Branch is examining what happened, but top of their list will be how this boat came to be in the middle of the water in the middle of the night and what were those men doing there.
OK, Paul, thanks very much for that update. And, of course, we will bring you more on that story as and when we get it. Now, China is urging North Korea to make what it's calling a smart decision and stop provoking other countries after the UN Security Council unanimously agreed fresh sanctions against the state. Last month, North Korea tested 2 intercontinental missiles, which it claims could reach US soil. But President Trump hailed the UN's decision, tweeting that it means the largest economic sanctions package ever on North Korea. From the US, Sky's James Matthews has this report.
2 missile launches in a month by North Korea dropped on the city. Japan was among the Security Council members voting for fresh sanctions. A country concerned at nuclear tensions on its doorstep, and one that needs no reminder of its possible consequences. James Matthews, Sky News, Washington.
Well, Asia correspondent Katie Stallard has the latest from Beijing.
I think China would say, firstly, they're very keen to stress that they are not the key to this. We've seen a lot in the state media here over the course of the last couple of weeks. How far China is prepared to push Kim Jong-un's regime on this.
The government may have abandoned its manifesto pledge to cap energy prices, but today it announced an independent review into what the industry charges. It'll look specifically at how to keep prices down for households and businesses while ensuring the UK meets its climate change targets. Well, the announcement comes just days after the country's biggest supplier, British Gas, announced a 12.5% hike in electricity prices. Well, Energy UK, which represents suppliers, welcomed the review.
What we need to be doing is making sure that we're using our energy in the most efficient way. That's the first part. But then secondly, to make sure that we're using the best technologies to bring those prices down. And actually, if you look at the figures from the Committee on Climate Change, for example, you can see that at the prices we're paying today are actually less than the prices we were paying back in 2008. So that's the message I think we really want to get out of here, that we're working with government, industry, everyone tremendously hard to take carbon out of our economy and to deliver the best possible prices to consumers and industry.
Well, let's get more on this and go live to Westminster and our correspondent Lewis Goodall. And Lewis, the government repeatedly saying they don't want prices to be extortionate for customers, and yet they continue to go up.
That's right, it has been a thorny issue for both this government and David Cameron's government, really stretching all the way back till 2013, when there really were some very steep price rises. At the time, you might remember, Ed Miliband, then leader of the Labour Party, said that if Labour were elected, they would have an energy price freeze at the time. Pared down review, which will, we think, report later in the year. OK, Lewis, thank you.
Now, Jeremy Clarkson has been admitted to hospital after contracting pneumonia whilst on holiday in Mallorca. The TV presenter was struck down with the infection whilst on a break with his family after filming the Grand Tour. He posted a picture online showing his arm in a drip with the caption, "Not the sort of bangles I usually choose on holiday." A man has died in a car crash during a police pursuit on the M4 near Cardiff. Officers attempted to stop a red Ford Focus, which was seen driving dangerously when the driver collided with a Land Rover between junctions 30 and 32 near Corriton roundabout. The driver of the Ford Focus was killed, whilst the driver of the other vehicles suffered minor injuries. Almost 400 police stations, that's 1 in 4, have closed down across the country in the latest decade, with many being sold to offset budget cuts. Derbyshire is one of the worst hit areas, with the number of public-facing counters falling from 25 to just 4. It comes just weeks after figures revealed the largest annual increase in crime in 10 years, whilst officer numbers fell to their lowest in 3 decades. Car manufacturers will have to protect internet-connected cars from cyber attacks more thoroughly under new government guidance issued today. It's feared hackers could target cars to access personal data, steal cars with keyless entry, or take control, potentially to cause crashes. The Children's Commissioner for England says parents should stop their children overusing social media and consuming time online like junk food. Anne Longfield told us children couldn't binge on the internet during the summer holidays.
Rather than parents controlling their use of children's social media, what I'm asking parents to do is to actually intervene, to talk with their children, to find a way through this that actually enables children to benefit from the great opportunities that the internet brings without falling into that trap that we know they feel, the pressure they feel to be online and the pressure they feel never to leave that go. Now, we're in the school holidays. We know that many children are feeling very stressed by that constant kind of draw of being online, and we know too that parents are struggling to work out quite how they do that. So what we're putting forward today is the idea of a digital 5 a day. It will actually help get a healthy diet of online time and enable children and their parents to work out how they do this. We know that children don't have the information they need about being online. They don't understand that actually the internet is all set up to get you addicted. They don't understand that social media companies and internet companies can target you. And as adults, we all find that difficult to deal with. But as children, this is the only thing they know. So what the 5 a day is all about is about variety. It's about leaving your screens. It's about being creative online, but also about being positive online, giving to others, being mindful of what you're doing.
Well, let's get more on this with Sky's Ashish Joshi. And Ashish, it's very easy saying this, but pretty difficult to put into practice, no?
Yeah, if you're a parent and you've ever had to take away a device from your child, you will understand the tantrums that follow. It's an addiction for many children. They have to be connected online, especially the ones between the ages of 8 and the early teens. They feel that's the only way to stay in touch with their friends, to be popular. And what Anne Longfield is actually saying is children need a digital detox. They don't understand that these very clever people at the tech companies build very clever algorithms, and they build their platforms in such a way that they're manipulating children who stay online because they feel they have to, because it increases their popularity. She talks about Snapchat, using a particular device, which is the Snap Streak, which the more you connect to other friends in your network, your streak increases. And if you're not connected, your streak decreases. Therefore, you were less popular than you were before. And for children, that's a very big issue, being
brutal,
popular.
Isn't it?
It is quite brutal, but they want to be popular, they want to be connected. What she's talking about is limiting their time so they can improve on their other skills, their interpersonal skills, communication skills, have access to a device like a smartphone or a tablet, but not all the time. That's why she compares it to junk food.
OK, Ashish, thanks very much for that update there. Now, you're watching Sky News. Coming up, will the energy industry be able to keep costs down despite increased investment in green technology?
And buy any 6 bottles of wine and save €10. Super Value. We believe in value.
You're watching Sky News. Let's find out now what's coming up in the sports.
Coming up in the sport at 2:15, England are batting in their second innings in the 4th Test, first game of the new Scottish football season. They come up against Rangers.
Bill, thanks very much for that. Look forward to that a bit later on in the programme. But now let's get more on the announcement that the government has set up an independent review into the cost of energy. It'll look specifically at how to keep prices down for homes and businesses as the industry continues to invest in green technology. Will Hodson is the founder of The Big Deal, which was set up to broker a new deal between suppliers and consumers through collective switching. He's in our central London studio. Good afternoon to you. First of all, your thoughts on this review. Will it have any impact?
If it has any impact at all, it'll take place many years from now. And that offers cold comfort for families who have seen their energy prices going up. British Gas announced a price rise this week. So after all the talk we had earlier this year of a price cap, you definitely are left with the impression now of a government that's kicking the can down the road.
And how exactly can they keep costs down if they are introducing this energy tariff?
How can British Gas keep those costs down? It's hard to say. It's important to decouple two concepts here. One is energy costs, which are faced by energy companies, and the other one's energy prices that are paid by consumers. Now, obviously, there's a relationship between the two, but the government has the move focus now onto costs facing energy companies, and therefore they're not looking at the markup on those costs that companies are putting on the prices paid by the most loyal customers. And that's been the crisis in the consumer market.
So what exactly can the government do to try and stop these prices going up and up? Because they've talked about it for many years, haven't they?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because funnily enough, there was a good idea on the table just a few months ago. That was a price cap, one of the very few policies that in fact united both Labour and Conservatives. We talked about capping bills for all consumers, so as to put an end to a situation where people were paying 30, 40, even 50% more for their energy than their neighbour, just because they were too loyal and too trusting of their energy supplier to switch. That cap should be brought back.
OK, and British Gas announcing that it's rising its prices when it's made, of course, significant profits. What are your thoughts on that specifically?
Well, very interesting that when the review of costs was announced, they talked about separating facts from fiction around the costs being faced by suppliers. Now, British Gas this week blamed costs around policy and transmission for their inevitable price rise. Immediately, the government said, that's not true. Policy costs cannot explain this. Ofgem published a report saying even transmission costs could not explain the price rises. So actually getting a bit of transparency, independence, And a kind of sense check on the excuses trotted out by energy companies is crucial, because otherwise there is a danger that this new focus on costs, as if they're unbearable and overwhelming, could allow certain energy companies to introduce more price rises in the weeks and months ahead.
But of course we are focusing on having a greener planet, and the government have to look at that as well, don't they? So it's kind of balancing things, really.
They should. We've been making efforts in that department for years. There's no reason that Britain can't deliver an energy system that is affordable and sustainable, and we should keep doing that.
Indeed. OK, thanks very much. Appreciate your time on that.
Thank you.
Well, let's take a look at the weather now, shall we? It looks a bit brighter out there today.
Whatever the weather, enjoy your holiday. Multitrip.com Travel Insurance, proud sponsors of Sky News Weather.
Now, after a chilly start to the day, with temperatures over parts of Scotland falling as low as 3 degrees Celsius, but it has also been pretty sunny for much of the UK mainland. All that will change, though, as the cloud and rain over Ireland begins to push eastwards. This will bring wet weather into western Scotland, northern England and North Wales by the middle of the day, leaving the best of the day's weather in central, southern and southeastern areas where temperatures should reach 22 degrees Celsius. That's, of course, 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, as the rain sinks a little further south, Scotland and Northern Ireland will turn showery with brighter spells. The bulk of England and Wales will stay dry. But cloud will steadily increase from the north, and the rain, I'm afraid, itself will turn heavy and persistent over southern Ireland and northern England.
Multitrip.com Travel Insurance, proud sponsors of Sky News Weather.
Now, young immigrants in the US are worried Donald Trump could try to reverse another key policy of Barack Obama's administration, the laws that allow them to live and work there legally. Our US correspondent Greg Milam reports now from Los Angeles.
I was born in Guatemala and was able to come here at the age of 9.
Ever since Donald Trump became president, he's held Melody Klingenfuss's future in his hands. An American dream. Feel any more secure? Greg Milam, Sky News, Los Angeles.
You're watching Sky News. Coming up after the break, the Church of England bishop who claims many priests are failing the poor by refusing to move from wealthy areas. Welcome back. You're watching Sky News. The top stories. One person has died, another has been rescued, and a major rescue operation is now underway to find 2 others after a boat sank in the English Channel off the coast of Sussex, reportedly after colliding with another boat. The UN has unanimously agreed to impose fresh sanctions against North Korea over its nuclear programme. The government has launched a review into energy pricing, looking at how the UK can meet its climate change targets whilst keeping costs down for consumers. Now, Usain Bolt's individual track career didn't end quite how athletic fans wanted it to last night. The Jamaican finished with a bronze medal, with the twice banned American Justin Gatlin taking the gold. Sky's Phil Edwards has this report.
Phil Edwards, Sky News at the London Stadium.
Now, a Church of England bishop has claimed the poor are being abandoned because many of his fellow priests are unwilling to move from wealthy areas with trendy coffee shops and artisanal bakers. The Right Reverend Philip North, Bishop of Burnley, told a Christian conference he was astonished at the number of people Jesus is calling to plant new churches as long as they're in Zone 1 or 2 of the London transport system. Well, the bishop joins us live now from Burnley. Thanks very much for your time this afternoon. I have to ask you, first of all, how exactly did these comments go down at the Christian conference?
It's a Christian conference called New Wine with 14,000 people there, very energetic, very young, lots and lots of vision and imagination. And I really wanted to sort of shake them up and challenge them a bit and think how much in our life together are we putting the poor first. We follow a Saviour in Jesus Christ who does that constantly. Look what he proclaimed to be the purpose of ministry. Look where he spent his time. It was with the poorest and the most marginalised. And it's really a way of challenging people to think, are we doing the same? Because I think all too often as a church we're failing to do the same.
So are you suggesting there's a sort of snobbery, if you like, within those working for the church?
I don't think there's a snobbery. I think people are very often balancing two vocations. You know, vocation to follow God and a vocation to be a family person and bring up children and so on. And I think often there is perhaps an understandable reticence about going to some of the toughest areas in the nation and the outer estates and so on. It doesn't need to be, actually, because that's where I spent most of my ministry, and they're tremendously enjoyable places to work. But it can be really hard work to attract clergy sometimes, particularly to areas in the north and the southwest, especially to the outer estates. And really, it was perhaps a challenge, a wake-up call to say, think about coming to these areas, committing part of your ministry to the poorest people in the country, because it's rewarding and it's where Jesus would be. I've got no doubt about that at all.
And what kind of impact is this having on people living in the poorest areas?
Well, of course, you know, we've got Grenfell Tower sitting there, haven't we, as a really frightening condemnation about how, as culturally, we're treating the nation's poorest people. It just shows a lack of infrastructure investment. You know, I've been in the last few days with people who've got 2-3 jobs, still dependent on food banks. We've got growing social inequality in our country. We've got a big problem. And the areas which most need the message of hope which Christians want to speak are those poorest areas, particularly our outer estates. That's where the church should be most strongly present, and that's actually, the sad truth is, those areas which at the moment we seem to be slowly, almost accidentally withdrawing from. I think the church needs to put the poorest first if we want the renewal that Christians want to see and that those people at that conference are praying for.
But didn't you used to work in Camden yourself, which of course is an area which is relatively affluent and I would say has a lot of trendy coffee shops?
It had a lot. I've been all over. And really, that's really what I want clergy to think about. Try everything. So I spent the first 10 years of my ministry on outer estates in Sunderland and Hartlepool. I spent the next 6 years running a place of pilgrimage in Norfolk for a change. That was a place mainly frequented by urban people. I worked on estates in Camden. It was in a city ministry, but of a different style. Now I'm up in the northwest. That's the great thing about being a priest. It's that kind of diversity and variety. And so what I'm saying really to my fellow priests, who I massively admire and respect, is spend some of your ministry in those poorest areas where the message of hope that we find in the gospel most needs to be proclaimed. Go for it, you know, be diverse and try everything, but particularly spend some of your time in those tougher areas.
OK, thanks very much for your thoughts. Appreciate that. The Right Reverend Philip North from Burnley. Thank you. Now, the Bishop just mentioned Grenfell Tower there, and in the days following the fire, hundreds of volunteers helped those affected by the disaster. Well, now, nearly 2 months on, many of those who lived in or near the tower are being helped in a very different way, and that's by giving them holidays to get away from things for a few days. Now, the idea is thanks to 2 mums from North Devon who set up the Grenfell Tower Holiday Appeal. Sky's Dan Whitehead went along to one of their trips in Bognor Regis.
For one day, the tower, the hotel room and the pain are a distant memory. Nearly 2 months on from the fire, it's hoped some new memories can be created this summer. Dan Whitehead, Sky News in West Sussex.
Now, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival is in full flow with a whole host of acts performing over the next 3 weeks. Sky's arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer is there.
How did you come up with the idea for something like this? It is very original. Did you want to do something that was cool, I guess?
Always. Yeah. I mean, us being boys that do tricks, we always want to do something cool. But that's kind of tricksy, coming up with the idea of a show. You basically just have to sit down, have a few days of just muscling together and brainstorming, and then kind of finally something just clicks and you come up with the idea. Yeah. And it's usually just kind of, we pick out of the sky.
It must be very enjoyable. I mean, I caught a very small section of your act, but it makes you gasp some of the things you do. Good. Is that fun when you're on the stage and you hear the audience just sharp inhale of breath?
The louder the gasps, the better for us, because we know we've done the trick right if we get a gasp. Because that's circus, I guess. You want to amaze, you want to scare, you want to impress, so the gasps are welcome.
Is it dangerous, or have you just rehearsed this so much that it couldn't go wrong? Should we not tempt fate?
Yeah, it's always dangerous, but you have to take the necessary steps in order to then finally have the big trick. But it's more everyday life is more dangerous for us. We injure ourselves doing silly things, like walking down the stairs, for instance. That's the last time I injured myself. So, yeah.
Right, you're going to show us a trick with the three of you. OK, right. Come on then, Baron. Show us you guys in action. gosh, the strength that you have to do something like this. Bear in mind as well, we're out on the Royal Mile. There's no safety mats underneath these guys. There's just the hard concrete pavement, so it takes some guts really to do this. Wow, to get this high. Building up quite a crowd already. Well done. Blimey. Scary stuff. Now, believe it or not, Beren thinks that I can do something like this. I've had one go at it and it made me scream, and I wasn't very confident at releasing my hands, but do you think I'm going to be any better second time around? Right, yeah. Someone right. Take the mic.
You were really
someone
good first time round. I'm serious. That was the only bad bit. Down.
Where am I going? That way?
Just like that.
This way. Step up right in.
God,
right
I'm
in
so sorry about this already.
Perfect.
Oh, God.
Right. Professional.
Love. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Ah! Oh, my God. No.
Hey!
Get me down!
Okay.
You're nailing it. So the
my
same
God.
way down?
Oh, my God. I think this is the most horrific thing.
You're really good at it.
Done.
Yes.
I'm retiring as an acrobat officially now. Well done, boys, but it's not for me.
Amazing TV moment of the week, that's for sure. Braver than I am. You're watching Sky News. Coming up in the
summer sale at DFS.
Welcome back. You're watching Sky News. Let's get a check on the sport now.
This sports bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Get healthy, get rewarded.
Good afternoon. We'll look ahead to a big day of football in England and Scotland shortly, but more live now on Sky Sports News, and we're back in the next hour.
Vitality. Get healthy, get rewarded.
Well, it's looking much brighter out there today. Let's see if it's set to continue.
While gentle winds cool Europe, an air of hospitality rolls through Bali.
Now, after a chilly start to the day with temperatures over parts of Scotland falling as low as 3 degrees Celsius, it has also been sunny for much of the UK mainland. All that will change, I'm afraid, as the cloud and rain over Ireland begins to push eastwards. This will bring wet weather into western Scotland, northern England and North Wales by the middle of the day, leaving the best of the day's weather in central, southern and southeastern areas where temperatures should reach 22 degrees Celsius.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
You're watching Sky News. Coming up, one man has died, another person has been rescued, and 2 more are missing after a boat sank in the English Channel. We'll bring you the very latest coming up after this short break.